When we come together, I feel like our times of worship are a celebration. And so we want you, if maybe you come from some type of heritage or you're new to the church, whatever that avenue or path may be, but you can express yourself. You can be celebratory. It's good. And we applaud you in doing this as we sing and we praise and we gather together. And so it's good to hear you. It's good to hear your voices. So we're kicking off this series today, 1 in a Million, that's part of the Fam Jam theme. And so I want to begin today by saying this is a pet peeve of mine. And I'm sure that maybe we could form our own life group of people that got things that are just, it gets on your nerves. Now, I realized after first service, I was screaming at people. I didn't mean to. So I'm going to try to dial it back just a little, just because I get passionate. It's not personal. It's just sometimes I communicate this way. So I'm going to do my best. But you know what I'm kind of tired of? You know what's happened in the last 18 months? Customer service. It's gone. Customer service is gone. Anybody else ticked off about this? Yeah, there you go. We give you your money and you talk to us like cattle. I'm tired of it. I don't know who to write. I don't know what congressman. We should find one because it is aggravating to me. I'm tired. You know what we've been reduced to? Okay, it's over now. I just got to throw it out there. Y'all do with it. Get me counsel. John, can you help me? Thank you. All right. No, he tried for years. You know what's kind of happened is we've been reduced to a number. We've been reduced down to a number. If you go to your bank, you have an account number. Your Social Security, when you're born, they give you a number. Everything we do, if you drive, you've got a number on your license. That's how everything happens. If you go through the drive-through, they give you a number. And they tell you to go wait in the stall. Don't touch anything. Don't talk to anybody. Just go to the stall and wait, and somebody will bring you what you need. My mom told me I was special. I don't feel special. When you've been reduced to a number, you don't feel special. No, you're right. My mom was right too. I am special. And so, you get into this to where you are reduced down. And I get some of it, but I don't know about you, but right now, I don't feel that special. In fact, I feel like we've been reduced to numbers. And I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I hate feeling like a number. I hate feeling like just cattle heading to the right stall. I hate it. So today, and over the next 4 weeks, I want to make sure that before you leave here, you understand 3 things. The first one is that you are loved. Second one is you are valued. And the third one is you are 1 in a million. See, I believe in the grind of life, that what you are grinding through, whatever job, relationships, neighborhood, school, classes, sport, whatever it is that you are grinding through, it really does become pretty easy to not feel loved. It's easy to kind of doubt. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way back into the creation story. We're going to begin in Genesis and kind of understand a little bit about how we were made, why we were made in the creation story, and how it really reflects to the Israelites. And this is who Genesis was really written for. Is the history book for them. And so as we kind of move back, we kind of pause right here for just a second. The Israelites have left Egypt, where they have been slaves for over 400 years. They have crossed the Red Sea, and now it is time. And Moses has begun to write Genesis. And it does serve as like a history book of telling them where they are and who they are and who he is in their lives. Because the Israelites, while they were in Egypt, they were exposed to this polytheistic worldview. The Egyptians had a little g God for everything. The sun was a god, the moon was a god, the river Nile was a god, the sand was a god, frogs were gods. I mean, everything you can imagine was a little g god that needed to be worshiped. So this Egyptian mythology was really shoved into their face. And so after 400 plus years, we're talking about multiple generations have passed since they were free. Multiple generations have passed since they were worshiping a Yahweh. And so Genesis is written to this new free nation of Israel about who you are. And it's God, capital G God, that is reintroducing himself to his nation. Reintroducing about who he is. Because in Egypt, they had everything under the sun thrown at them. And it was done to break you down. It was done to break the Israelites down to where they didn't know a capital G God from a little g God. But in their brief history of freedom, of leaving Egypt, they began to see this powerful capital G God. They had witnessed many miraculous moments with him. They had saw the plagues. They had witnessed them while in Egypt. They saw Moses part the Red Sea. In the coming days, they will have manna and quail. They were led by a cloud or a pillar of fire. So believing in the power of a capital G God wasn't really going to be an issue. They saw it firsthand. This crew, this first generation leaving Egypt, they would have witnessed the power of a capital G God. They could have easily said, hey, do you remember when we were overrun by the frogs or the locusts or when the Nile turned red? They would have understood that. They would have said, oh yeah, I've seen that. They would have said, do you remember when Moses stood up and raised his staff and his arms and the sea parted? Yeah, we saw that. Do you remember that? They could have been telling the stories. They could have been sharing this. This would not have been crazy. But after you have been a slave for 400 plus years, generation after generation, hundreds of years, generation after generation, and to this moment in time, I don't think arguing over the power of a capital G God was going to be the issue. I think they had a question they couldn't quite figure out. I mean, who is this capital G God? All they knew was what Moses had told them that he had encountered at the burning bush. He'd tell them the I am sent you. But the question would have been this: why is he doing this for me? I mean, if you've been a slave, you've been a generational slave, beat down, explained you have no value, you have no worth, you are of no use to us, you are a number. You're no use to me. Live or die, we don't care. Live or die, we don't care. If you can't make bricks, we don't need you. If you can't help us in building what we want to build, then we don't need you. And you're just another mouth to feed. So live or die, we really don't matter. And so they would have been told this over and over and over. And so all of a sudden, this capital G God shows up in their story and is doing unbelievable, miraculous, powerful things. And they want to know. I don't want to know. Why? Why are you doing this for me? I'm a nobody. I'm a number. See, Egypt had done a great job of training them. You're not loved. You are not loved. You are not valued. You are disposable. You're a number. We don't need you. You are not loved. You are not valued. You're disposable. See, in all the other creation accounts of ancient religions, all of them, there's a little g God that takes up residence in a pre-existing universe. They didn't create the world. They didn't form it. They didn't shape it. They just merely ran it. And they had really no use for men. They had no use for women. They just actually used the creation for their personal pleasure. All the stories of these little g gods that had permeated all through the story. Then all of a sudden, Moses is claiming a capital G God who loves them, chooses them, wants them. And all of a sudden, Moses starts talking about a capital G God who existed before anything. God was around all before creation. He wasn't created, he was the beginning. And he created it not because he had to. He didn't create the animals and the mountains and the streams and night and day. He didn't create the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the volcanoes and the oceans. He didn't create all that because someone told him he had to, or he ought to, or he should. He did it because he wanted to. He wanted to. And then he did something maybe a little shocking. He decided to add man to the picture. Out of all the creation, of all those things, he decides to add men and women. Genesis 1:26 says this, and then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. See, all of creation, if you go back through and you read chapter 1 and some of chapter 2, in all of creation, it is spoken into existence. Everything is spoken into existence. God said it, and it happened. Now, I don't want to argue. I don't know. I was not there. But, I mean, maybe there was an explosion and it created. However it did, here's what I know. God spoke it into existence, and it happened. But when it comes to man, he uses his hands. Now, there's some imagery there that is very powerful, that begins to help us understand where our value and where our love comes, that this creator God, this capital G God, is speaking everything to an existence. But when it comes to human beings, when it comes to man, when it comes to woman, it's almost like he gets down on his hands and his knees and he gathers the dirt around and begins to shape it and form it exactly how he wants it. When it comes to man, he uses his hands. And from the very beginning, there is a special relationship between God and man. We become his prized possession. That everything else that is spoken into the very existence is really cool. It's really fascinating. It's unbelievable. There are some breathtaking views. There are some things that animals do that I wish we could do. But we are made in the very image of God. And that creates a special bond between us. We are loved. We are valued. We're this one in a million. Verse 28 says this, God blessed them, and he said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. And then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And it was so. This unbelievable, one-of-a-kind creation, never seen before, that God spoke into existence. And he takes it and he turns it over to man. Just turns it over. And I mean by creation, I'm not talking about one lot or one county or one state or one country. He said all creation. Everything. And out of all the creation, there's only one thing that doesn't bring him pleasure that you can read about in chapter 1. It's that he didn't want man to be alone. He wanted a suitable helper. And none could be found. And out of all this unbelievable, amazing creation, he said, man didn't need to be alone. And again, he goes to his hands, not speaking it into existence, but in his hands. We get Adam, we have Eve, and God blessed them. He blessed them with an abundance of everything. He encouraged them, live life to the fullest. He gave them authority over all things. He gave them responsibility over all things. And responsibility and authority go hand in hand. It's really hard to have one without the other. And he tells them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over all the living creatures. When we have authority and responsibility that God has given us, then we have purpose for our existence. It gives us a special meaning in our heart. And God gave them free reign. Just like he said in Genesis 1:29, he said, here, you have all these things. I give you every seed-bearing plant, tree that has fruit, beasts of the earth, birds of the air, everything that has breath, everything that breathes, it's yours. And he said it was good. It was good. So you fast forward about 2,000 years, and David takes some of the very same principles that we learned here in Genesis, and he goes into Psalm 139, and he begins to really talk about what this means and how it applies to us. Now, as David dives deeper into this, we've just got to understand just how complex God is. I mean, to say God is complex is an understatement. I mean, for us to really comprehend him is, I think, just impossible. There are just some things we're not going to get this side of heaven. I mean, if you look at some of our inventions over time, right? I mean, we invented spam. You know, we did. We got to own that. And so if we invent that, do we really have a full grasp of who God is? Anyway, maybe that's just me. But to understand who he is and understand how complex his thoughts and what he's doing, if we said we figured it out, I think it'd be arrogant. But for us to gather what's going on in Psalm 139, there's some attributes we've got to understand. That God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. That he's all-knowing. He's omniscient. And he's all-powerful. He's omnipotent. And so we're going to read this first few verses here and listen to this and take it in. Psalm 139, verse 1. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. That God has this perfect knowledge and understanding of us. And when David's writing this, there appears to be this almost a concern or a sincerity and maybe reverence that is deeply personal for David, deeply personal for him. Because he says, you know me. This same God that Adam and Eve, he crafts with his hands, the same God that David is writing about is saying, I know you. Now, in the scripture, when we see this in the Old Testament, it talks about knowing someone biblically. What is equivalent, what that's really translating out to is the equivalency of the relationship between a husband and wife. It is deep intimacy. But I know you. I know you. It's this deep intimacy that he is talking about here in this passage that David feels that God understands about him. And David begins getting pretty specific about it. He goes, you know me, you know wherever I am and whatever I'm doing. God knows everything. He knows you. He knows me. He knows your imagination. He knows your thoughts. He knows your deeds. He knows your motives. He knows the things that you long for. He even knows your looks. Now, you may be thinking, what do you mean look? Getting ready? No. You know the look. You know when your brain sends the message to your face to let someone know that was stupid? God knows. You know the image, the message that goes to your brain that goes, that is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard anybody say. And your face goes, Yeah, God knows. He knows. That may be shocking to some of you, but he does. See, there are some people that believe that when we are born, that God just takes his hands off the wheel and says, go and live your life. But that's not true. He knows us. He knows everything about us. He's familiar with us. And when you take that kind of information in, it is hard to fathom. He goes on in verse 7. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. And if I say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light becomes night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, and when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. See, I tend to think we may have a little bit of an epidemic. As we've come through the last however many months, that maybe we are beginning to struggle with where our identity is really found. And maybe we're suffering an identity crisis. That we begin to lose sight. Maybe we feel like a number. That we're not loved. We're not valued. We're not one in a million. I mean, when David is writing this, he's letting us understand our real value here. That he knows us. That he knit us together in our mother's womb. He put us together. David is sure that God perfectly knows him, all his ways, that we're under his eye. And God is everywhere, and if he's everywhere, he's got to be all-knowing. I mean, in Jeremiah 23, it says this, who can hide in secret places so I cannot see them, declares the Lord. Do not I feel heaven and earth, declares the Lord. See, heaven and earth includes the whole creation. And the Creator, capital G God, feels both. He not only knows us both and governs us both, but he fills them, makes them whole. Every part of God's creation is under his intuition and influence. His hand is on it. We cannot get out of the sight of God. We cannot hide, and we cannot run. He will always know where we are. God's all-knowing. He knows David, he knows me, and he knows you. He knows everything about us. Now, see, sometimes when people talk about this unbelievable love of God, they kind of just put it out there like he's that uncle or that grandparent that no matter what we do, right or wrong, they just go, oh, you know what I mean? You know, no matter how mad your parents were, there was one grandparent that would go, it'll be okay. That's not this love. I mean, God loves us so much. We are his. He chooses us. He wants us. But we don't it's not a get out of jail free card. We can't just go do whatever we want because his love is just so overwhelming that it doesn't hold us accountable. That's not true. But his love is real. And this love, he chooses us because we are his masterpiece. We're this one of a kind. God made us. And there's no doubt that he knows us. That he knew us and we were being formed in our mother's womb. And if he was knowing us there and forming us there, then when we are out of the womb, he is still there. That this is all about this glory of God that he's doing. I mean, our parents were just instruments to what was taking place. It's this miracle of birth that when we were created, we were under divine inspection. We were under this divine operation. This when we begin to see human beings, other people, shape, size, color, whatever, doesn't matter, that when we are born, there is confetti cannons going off in heaven. There is a celebration taking place when birth happens. It is, woohoo, those are mine. These are my children. I mean, we've got to begin to consider it this great miracle. What is ordinary in nature is extraordinary. Each child in the womb miraculously knit together, and God says, that's mine. As you have grown and matured in your life, as you've gone through preschool and kindergarten and grade school, high school, college, jobs, relationships, he's still going, that's mine. You are not a number. You are not a number to a capital G God. You may be a number to a government. You may be a number to your bank. You may be a number to your fast food restaurant. You may be a number to your grocery store. You can't even buy ham without taking a number. Everywhere you go, you got to take a number. But to God, you're not. You're His. He loves you. You have value. He chooses you. And when it says He knits you together in your mother's womb, it's everything: attitude, heart, passion, hope. And He goes on to say, you were fearfully and wonderfully made. Not only did He put us together, but He has a plan. So maybe the real question we have to ask in this time, where we've been really pretty devalued, we've become a number. Go to this stall and wait. That we have to ask kind of the same question the Israelites asked thousands of years ago. Why is He, capital G God, doing this for me? Simple. It's a simple answer. You're loved. You're valued. He made you, chooses you, and you are His. You know what's crazy? Is in all those things that it says He's everywhere and all-knowing, He knows all the things that we think about. He knows all the things we've done. He knows the lies we've told. He knows the stories we made better. He knows the things we've stolen. He knows the way we've deceived. He knows. He knows. He knows about the trophies you've won. He knows about your success. He knows about the good things you did when nobody else saw it. He saw you change the tire in the parking lot when nobody else was looking. He knows. Good, bad, ugly, He knows. And He goes, I'm so in love with you. I'm so in love with you. See, our value is not created by any of your accomplishments or your possessions or what other people say about you. Your value is held because the bar standard becomes a capital G God.